Up next on U.S. Bank Business Watch, presented by the Business Courier, going public, why it's not an easy sell for local companies and what that means for the Cincinnati economy. A local firm is a leader in finding Major League Baseball talent. A new place to eat outside the ballpark, and it's all about comfort food. U.S. Bank Business Watch is next. Good morning and welcome to U.S. Bank Business Watch. I'm Peg Rasconi. On the Business Courier front page centerpiece this week, when it comes to going public, our area is lacking, and some say that's a problem for the Cincinnati economy. Initial public stock offerings are actually IPOs in Cincinnati. Greater Cincinnati has had just 3 IPOs in the past 15 years, according to data from IPO research firm Renaissance Capital. That ranks Cincinnati last among 8 similar regional cities. Pittsburgh, Nashville, Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Milwaukee each had more than 10 IPOs since 2000. Companies like Total Quality Logistics are good candidates for an IPO, but they're simply not interested. So why is Cincinnati missing out when it comes to IPOs? Well, first, it's costly. Second, Cincinnati doesn't have many companies in technology, and that's one of the hottest IPO sectors. And a third reason is Cincinnati has a lot of family businesses with owners who don't want to lose control of their firms and invite the scrutiny that comes from going public. From an economic vitality standpoint, some say a lack of IPOs hurts Cincinnati. Business Courier reporter Steve Watkins wrote this story and joins Business Watch producer Kelly Leon in the studio with more. Steve and Kelly.
Thanks, Peg. Steve, thanks for coming in this morning.
Sure.
So why does this matter? Why is this a bad thing, and what do IPOs bring to a city?
There are quite a few reasons, actually. It is a big deal for the city and for the economy. One is these companies, by definition, really are high-growth companies. Their revenues and their profits often are growing really rapidly. That's why investors want to buy into it. So that's a big deal, obviously, to have in the community. Also, it creates a lot of jobs. Courier is the company that was the last real startup locally in 2005. Its jobs have doubled since it went public in 2005 to 320.
Wow.
So that's a big deal. And creates a lot of wealth, too. I mean, you hear about all these IPOs on TV, and the stock rises a lot. The directors, managers, and employees with stock options all tend to make a lot of money if the stock does well, and in many cases it does. So it's a real big deal.
So Peg mentioned all those other cities that are ahead of us. Is that surprising that we're lagging?
It actually was. It was funny when I talked to a lot of the people that are in the business, they're venture capital people or they're lawyers and accountants that help companies go public. Their first answer was, well, other than the West Coast, I don't think there are that many cities that have that many of these IPOs. They figured just everybody was low, but when you look at the numbers, I mean, a lot of these cities have triple the number of IPOs we have. So it was surprising to a lot of people.
So how do we solve this problem? How do we get more?
Yeah, that's the big question. There are a couple things that the people I talked to really highlighted. One is that we really need more venture capital, seed capital, really early stage money to help these companies grow before they're to the point of going public. I likened it to the Reds farm system. You've got a lot of minor leaguers. A few are going to make the majors, not all of them. But the more prospects you have, the better chance you have of a few hitting the IPO. So a lot of it goes back to the startup community too, where just the more high growth startup companies we have, the better chance we have. And we are headed toward that with companies like Centrifuge and CincyTech investing in the early stages.
So quickly, one last question. Any companies in line that are candidates to become IPOs?
There are, yeah. The people I talked to highlighted, one is AssureX. It's a company in Mason and does genetic testing. And that company's growing like wildfire. They didn't say that they were thinking about going public, but they're a typical candidate. It's venture-backed in Cincinnati. Another good candidate, I did talk to the CEO, Bob Coughlin of Paycor, a payroll services company here. It's been around about 25 years. It's on a real high growth track, and he said in a couple of years they are seriously considering in a couple of years taking that IPO step.
Okay, and I think you mentioned a few more in the print edition, so folks need to check that out for the full story. Thanks, Steve, and Peg, back to you.
All right, thanks, Stephen Kelly. Well, a local mutual fund has hauled in some high-powered rankings from the nation's 2 top mutual fund rating services. The Gateway Fund is in the top 3% of all funds in its equity market neutral classification for 5-year returns, according to rating firm Lipper. And Morningstar Inc. rated Gateway as a silver medalist in its long-short equity fund category and highlighted it as its medalist of the week. Morningstar called Gateway a fund for fans of the slow and steady. A new Ohio Supreme Court rule, pioneered by Cincinnati attorneys, allows corporate lawyers to do more pro bono work. Attorneys licensed to practice law in other states can work for companies as corporate counsel without passing the Ohio bar, but they could not do pro bono work outside of the corporation that employed them. In 2012, a group of attorneys at GE Aviation in Evendale set about changing that. It took more than 2 years, but the rule is now changed. It took effect April 1st. It's a welcome change for the Pro Bono Partnership of Greater Cincinnati, an association of close to 200 corporate attorneys who do pro bono work for nonprofits that support the area's most disadvantaged people. Their clients include the Adopt a Class Foundation, Faces Without Places, Jewish Family Services, and Strategies to End Homelessness, to name a few. 3 Cincinnati organizations that care for seniors have created a new company, and it's participating in a federal pilot project designed to improve patient outcomes and lower costs. Episcopal Retirement Homes, Life Enriching Communities, and Home Care by Blackstone launched the Post-Acute Care Network this month. They plan to invest about $750,000 this year to fund the venture. In the first year of operation, the group anticipates serving about 500 patients through a bundled payment pilot. A key component will be reducing readmissions to area hospitals. An insurance company claims the couple whose Indian Hill mansion was destroyed by fire made fraudulent claims. Chubb National Insurance wants the $60 million complaint filed by Jeffrey and Maria Decker dismissed, and it wants the Deckers to return nearly $700,000 paid to them after the fire. The Deckers' $4 million home was destroyed by fire in January of 2014. Mobile phone records indicate Jeff Decker allegedly misrepresented where he was at the time he reported the fire. He and his wife also allegedly concealed a potential motive to intentionally destroy the house to collect insurance money. Baseball season is back in full swing. Cincinnati Reds fans celebrated opening day last week in grand style, as we do every year, with the 96th annual Findlay Market Opening Day Parade and a Reds win. By all indications, it was a good day around the park, on the field, and in Great American Ballpark.
It was awesome. The stadium's cool. The changes they made is awesome.
And if rain kept you from the game, chances are you were watching on TV. The Reds opening day game on Fox Sports Ohio and Local 12 drew the biggest local TV market share of any Major League Baseball team in the season's openers. The Cincinnati sports agent Joe Bick has represented some of the biggest names in Major League Baseball since founding his business, ProStar, in 1986. The highest profile player Bick now represents is Brett Gardner, a New York Yankees outfielder who signed a $52 million contract extension that begins this season. Bick got his own start in the majors as an intern with the Cleveland Indians before rising to assistant to the Indians' president. Now he's all about identifying talent.
Getting out and finding players that are capable of being successful major league players. You know, we have to identify them, then we have to recruit them, develop a relationship with them, and hopefully help them nurture their careers to get to the point where they become profitable clients for us.
Bick shares everything from the key to contract negotiations to the 5 best ballparks in the Business Courier print edition this week. Well, part of the appeal of Great American Ballpark may be the food that surrounds it. And this year, Italian is on the menu at the Banks. Santo Graal is now open in a space formerly occupied by Mahogany's.
We're actually making our pasta from scratch every day. Goes great with like the braised chicken and the chicken cacciatore and homemade meatballs, and making our own lasagna noodles, along with great pizzas that we will also have available late night through a pizza window.
Santo Graal is Italian for Holy Grail, and the restaurant is owned by the same group that owns and operates the Holy Grail restaurant right next door. Up next on U.S. Bank Business Watch, a giant water slide is coming to a Cincinnati street near you this summer. And a new bar is open that attempts to take customers back in time. Some news now that's getting a lot of attention on the Business Courier website and social media sites. A gigantic water slide will cover Cincinnati's streets this summer. Slide the City is a company that totes a 1,000-foot padded vinyl slide across the U.S. and Canada. The company will be here June 20th and set up its slide on Jefferson Avenue near the University of Cincinnati's campus. Registration is required. See the Business Courier website for details. Assurex Health plans to move its headquarters and laboratories to a $15 million complex that will be built next year in Mason's Oak Park district. The building will be on Innovation Way near the planned $16.4 million Western Row interchange for Interstate 71. About 190 of Assurex Health's 300 employees are based in Mason, but the first phase of the new headquarters will be designed to accommodate up to 500. A new bar and restaurant focused on history and tradition is now open in an historic building in Columbia, Tusculum. Pearl's Cincy is located on Eastern Avenue. An 8-month renovation focused on preserving the historic charm of the nearly 100-year-old building. Pearl's serves classic cocktails and beer, along with a 4 to 5 item small bites menu at the new site, which is just doors away from Jeff Ruby's Precinct restaurant. The bar is owned by 3 men who grew up together in Cincinnati. Say goodbye to the banana phone during Red's rain delays. For 26 years, the banana phone was a constant on Red's flagship radio station WLW. Typically, it involved play-by-play broadcaster Marty Brenneman taking fans' calls, answering their questions, and providing commentary while waiting for the rain to pass. But the Reds' vice president of corporate sales says the Reds have done away with the banana phone this season simply because it's run its course and a change is needed. Well, earlier in the program, we talked about the lack of initial public offerings in Cincinnati and how that's impacting our local economy. In this morning's U.S. Bank Economic 360, we want to keep the IPO discussion going. Nationally, there are some high-profile IPOs out there like Etsy and Uber that are getting a lot of attention. U.S. Bank Vice President and Senior Portfolio Manager Mike Denneman joins us this morning to talk about that aspect of going public. He's with Business Watch producer Kelly Leon in the studio. Mike and Kelly.
Thanks, Peg. Mike, I've got the IPO interview down this week. So last year, we were seeing record-setting numbers of IPOs nationally. What are we seeing the first quarter of this year?
Right. So we did see some really, right out of the box, a great pace last year. We haven't quite met that pace last year or this year, but again, things were going just so gangbusters last year. I don't think anybody anticipated we'd see such a hot start this year. So we still had 41 IPOs in the first quarter, which is a very healthy number. In fact, it's right in line with what we would expect with the typical first quarter. But in context of last year, when we saw 71 IPOs in the first quarter, you see that's more than double that typical average. So I don't think anyone anticipated that we'd be on that same pace, but still the IPOs that we did see in terms of volume tells us that so far it's a healthy year.
And last year, I remember Alibaba was the hot one, and then Peg mentioned Uber and Etsy. What are we seeing this year in terms of what are the hot ones that are?
Sure. So yeah, nothing so far this year that has even close to the hype of Alibaba, which stole all the headlines last year. But as you mentioned, we've seen some familiar names so far, some household names. A week or so ago, we had GoDaddy.com, technology company many people familiar with from their TV commercials with Danica Patrick. We're just a week or so away from Etsy having their offering. Many of us familiar with that name from shopping on their website. But you know, those are, despite being household names, they didn't grab a lot of headlines.
Right.
Uber, on the other hand, will be the big hype machine, with the caveat, if they come to market this year. So it's widely expected that they will have their IPO in 2015, but then there are some that are saying, well, maybe the company is not quite ready, in that we should expect that maybe 2016 is more likely. So they haven't shown their hand yet, so there'll be a lot of debate as the year goes on. But if they do come to market, certainly that would be the highest profile IPO for the year.
So what else? All eyes are on Uber, but what else should we be looking for? Any other trends? Any other things to watch?
Yeah, in terms of just the trend itself, I think how the year plays out depends on what the stock market itself does. We've seen so much activity with IPOs because the market is at record high levels. If you own a private business, you want to cash out when things are going well. So you're going to look to have your IPO when the market's high. On the other hand, if the market's down, there's really not much incentive for you as a business owner to cash in your shares. So if the market continues to do well, it stays at these levels for 2015, I think we just see the IPO trend continue to chug along. But there's some out there that say that a correction is overdue. So if the market were to slip a little bit, I think we'd see the number of IPOs pulling back.
All right. Well, you'll watch it for us. As always, we appreciate U.S. Bank. We so appreciate you being here.
Hopefully I can come back later this year and we can talk about all the hype on Uber.
We would love to do that. Peg, back to you.
All right, thanks, Kelly and Mike. And still to come on U.S. Bank Business Watch, a new event that's bringing together Northern Kentucky businesses. And congratulations to Brendan Cull, Senior Director of Government Relations and Regulatory Affairs at the Kroger Company, another of our 40 under 40 honorees. In this morning's Business Insight, the Business Showcase is a new event coming up this week sponsored by the Northern Kentucky Chamber. It has 3 goals: connect business professionals with potential clients and customers, strengthen relationships, and experience firsthand the latest services and products being offered by Northern Kentucky Chamber companies. The event also includes a keynote address from Karen Forgas, Senior Vice President of Business Operations for the Cincinnati Reds. Northern Kentucky Chamber President Trey Grayson and Daryl Evans, the volunteer chair of the event planning committee, joined Business Courier publisher Jamie Smith in the studio with more. Gentlemen.
Thanks, Peg. Thanks for being here today, guys.
Our pleasure.
So she said this is a new event. Is that accurate?
It's kind of a reboot. It's an event that had been done in the past, but we rebranded it and we changed the focus a little bit to include some other aspects other than just a trade show. So.
Okay. So what are those aspects? I know she talked a little bit about Karen Forgas being the keynote. That's probably a great draw.
Absolutely. So Karen, she's the highest ranking female in Major League Baseball who's a non-family member.
Okay.
So I'm sure a lot of our women would enjoy hearing her story and how she got to where she is. And of course, the Reds 3-0 off to a great start.
There we go.
So, it's going to be great to have her there to talk about that. And then we have the workshops that we're doing alongside of the expo.
The expo.
Yeah.
So actually come and get some education as well.
Yeah, and we did a survey. So our committee reached out to our membership and said, what would you like to hear more about? So we're looking to do things that our small businesses would really enjoy hearing about. And so the survey came back and we ended up with 3 events that we think are really applicable. One is going to be focused on social media. And we have Dave Hatter from Definity Partners who's going to be, he's like the LinkedIn guru, so he knows what he's doing and he'll really give us some great tips there. Then we have a speaker from Nexigen, who's one of our emerging 30 companies, who's going to talk about IT issues and security, which is
Very
obviously
issue right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the third person will be Brendan Scanlon, who's the head of BNI in the greater Cincinnati area.
All about networking.
Going to talk about referrals. He's going to focus on referrals. So great workshop events and an opportunity for people to learn a little bit more about how to make their business more successful.
Good. Trey, is this going to be a good example of the showcase of the representatives of Northern Kentucky Chamber?
Yeah, there's a broad representation of our membership from both sides of the river, even though it is put on by the Northern Kentucky Chamber, and it's the Met Center out at Mineola, out towards the airport. But yeah, so off camera we were talking about this is sort of like continuing education for business people. You come in, you can get exposed to some great business partners potentially for your company, as well as learn, as Daryl said, from some great speakers about about networking and computer security and social media, the kinds of things you need to know to be successful in business today. So we're showcasing and we're helping you as well. So it's a new kind of expo.
That's great. One thing that I've been involved with the Northern Kentucky Chamber for years, but one thing that impresses me is, Daryl being here today as the chair, the member, the volunteer that's making this work. Every event you guys have, you have that volunteer behind.
We're member-led, and Daryl did all the talking at the beginning, and that's no accident, because he and his committee were the ones that conceived of this, executed it, came up with all the ideas, and are making it happen. That's why we're such a successful chamber in representing the businesses of our community, because it's those member businesses that run the show, and they tell us staff members what to do.
Well, that's great. That's why you get so much done. I know I volunteered for the annual dinner for several years leading that, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun.
It is.
Is there an example or any kind of representatives? What kind of companies are we going to see there in the expo? Vast variety of firms?
It does. There's going to be a variety of firms. Office Depot, OfficeMax have been a great supporter and sponsor of the event. They helped get Karen there for us. So you're going to have those types of firms that provide services to small businesses. It really runs the gamut. So.
Great.
Tech companies, healthcare companies, basically anything you might need as a business manager or business owner. We're going to be there.
Industries. That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear Karen speak. I know she's been a driving force behind the fan experience at the Reds since Castellini's taken over. So I'm sure she's going to give some great insight into that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you guys being here today. We're going to have a full screen that shows the details. But again, it is the 15th. From 8 to 12:30 at the Met Center in Northern Kentucky out by the airport. So I look forward to seeing you guys there.
All right.
And thanks for being on today.
Thank you.
Great. Peg, back to you.
All right, sounds like a great event. Thanks, gentlemen. And thank you for joining us this morning for U.S. Bank Business Watch. On behalf of everyone at the Business Courier and all of us with U.S. Bank Business Watch, we want to join the community in remembering and celebrating the life of Lauren Hill. We extend our condolences to her family and wish them peace. She was truly an inspiration to us all, a life far too short, but very well lived. I'm Peg Rasconi. We'll see you next week.